Welcome everybody. I recorded a podcast episode yesterday, and I was like, I haven't recorded anything for ages, and this is the third one I've recorded in the space of a couple of days, and I've been so excited about this part of the podcast or this series because there's been people who I've met like this quite recent. So this is Matt, and we met probably about a year ago, maybe.
Yeah,
About
about a year. Yeah,
a
around a year
year.
time. Yeah.
And when everybody gets to hear your story of the move away from teaching, starting a tutoring business to where it's at today, I think people are going to have their minds blown. So I'm just going to hand over the reins. Like, Matt, introduce yourself. What do you do? What do you offer?
Mhm.
And let's just get the ball rolling. Tell us a little bit about how you moved or why you moved away from teaching and what kind of made you step towards growing your tutoring business.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I was a head of English and Maths in a further education college before I decided to move to tutoring. So my role it was a middle management role that I was doing at college, and I loved managing a team. I loved working with the teachers there and the students. And private tutoring was something I did alongside that. And I did private tutoring from the start of my teaching career, which was back in 2015. So I had a number of private tutees that I saw one to one after school, after I'd go to work,
Mm.
after school, I'd go and tutor them. And it was only until sort of the tail end of the year when I was speaking with my partner about what the future holds in my middle management role, what my future holds at where I was working. And I didn't really see that I wanted to progress up anymore. So the
Mm.
goal of me being in middle management, I couldn't see the way forward. And so what that led to was a discussion around, I what do you enjoy? And I enjoyed the tutoring. The tutoring was the thing that I loved doing. I was doing it in my free time. So it was the thing I wanted to do. And then it led to could I make this a full-time thing? And that was a really big concern for me because I got worried about a stable salary, the pension, set income. And it was only really when I found Life After Teaching and then the Grow Your Tutoring group where I started to think that this could actually be something that I could pursue. And then I did the Tutors Who Thrive course in the summer of that year I chose to leave. But I think my partner said something to me which was quite important at the time, which was if you don't do it now, you might never do it.
Mm.
And you might never have you might be in a position where you can't go. So I was in a position where actually I could do it. And I thought, I'm going to give it a go and see where I'm at in 2 years' time. And I set myself 2 years to really get myself to the point where I want to see if I can continue or not. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was at. And you know, I loved what I did. I was head of English and Maths. I supported students who previously needed to resit GCSEs to go on to resit those qualifications. And so my tutoring business now focuses on English and Maths, as you can imagine.
So what's interesting is that your decision to move away from sort of the mainstream education wasn't born out of a falling out of love as such. It was like you actually hit a ceiling of your career. You didn't really want to go to the next level because it wasn't motivating you, and it helped us just to find time to reflect back on focus on the things that you really wanted to do. So it was based
Yeah.
on almost like this is what I want to do. I want to spend my time doing these things. If I can make a go of it, great. And then Sam is in there somewhere, the decision to go, right, I'm going to give myself 2 years. Why did you this is a bit of a weird question, but why did you choose 2 years?
I thought in 2 years' time, it gives me enough time to establish a business. It
Yeah.
gives me enough time to see what my life would look like in that time period,
Okay.
and if at that time in 2 years, I mean, I'm in a situation with my partner that we're getting married next year. So I'm in sort of a big change in my personal life. And we would think about, starting our own family at that time as well. So for us, it was all about can I generate the business enough to get us to a place personally where we can use it to support our lifestyle. And that's kind of why I said 2 years.
I mean, I think it's really sensible, like that, and anybody who's watching like this or listening to it who hasn't started yet, or perhaps maybe really in the early stages, to give yourself a time frame for it to work. Now, that can look different for whoever you are, because everybody has their own starting position and also their own financial pressures. And you can make it work in a number of ways, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But to give yourself like, okay, 2 years to get my own business up and running, it seems like such a sensible way forward, a sensible strategy. But tell us where you're at, because actually you're ahead. I would say you're ahead of the game. I don't know if you agree with that. I mean, I know
Yeah.
we've not connected massively, but I've kept an eye open, and I've seen
Mm.
you share in the group and give advice. Tell us where you're at right now. What's happened in your business since you started?
So I think in my business now, I now have 3 other tutors who work alongside me. I run small group tuition. This year, up to sort of this point of the year, I was full. So I was working not just in my own business, but I was freelancing myself to other agencies as
Yeah,
well, which I think for a lot of people, when they think about leaving and being self-employed, you don't have to just think about it as your own business. I always thought of it as I could look at multiple ways of generating income for myself. And so the freelancing for other businesses was a really natural way for me to get back into sort of and build up quite a stable income for myself. In terms of in terms of income over the year, I've earned more than I was when I was working in the college. I earned more than I did this year. That's
amazing,
just at this point over the year. So it's set us up quite nicely for the summer. So we've been able to take added on to that, we've been able to take holidays in term time, which has meant that we've had cheap holidays, so our costs have gone down quite a lot as well.
yeah.
So all in, it feels quite a big change,
Mm.
and it has been really, really good this year. And I think now I've started to generate the word of mouth in my local area, which
Mm.
has meant that my business now is sort of being pushed out there a bit more. More parents are contacting me, and it is going really well actually.
So that organic reach is happening through
Mhm.
word of mouth, which again, like if you're just
Mm.
starting out, it won't be there yet.
No.
But once people start to realize how good you are and the difference and transformation that you can provide, it
Mm.
does not take long for word to spread. And
No.
even like the really big, like even the national chains of tuition companies, they still rely heavily on word of mouth. And some might have a marketing budget, some will have like fancy brands and visuals and all of those things, which, yeah, can make a big difference. And you should go down that path if you're at that level. But if you ask them where they still get the most of their referrals from, word of mouth. It's
Yeah,
word of mouth the majority of the time.
100%.
So it's a good sign for two things. First of all, it means that what you're offering is a really high level service, and the second one means you're fostering healthy relationships with the people you're supporting because they're willing to go out there and champion your service. That's yeah, hats off to you. So let's just recap for people who may have missed it. Your business started in September.
So it started around July. So I actually started from July, and I offered July 2023, and I offered some small groups over the summer. And I was surprised. I only had a handful of people at that point, but I was surprised at how much reach that then got me in the future, because those
Yeah,
parents felt one of my parents who was joined me in that group actually was so supportive that she ended up bringing me around 6 or 7 other clients to my
incredible.
business. So it was even those little things, even starting out, if you do something of quality and you do something well, and
Mm.
you constantly communicate with the parents about how they're experiencing it, how you can improve
Yeah.
it, you'll find that does generate some real interest, and people will start referring you.
So within 11 months, as we're coming up to the 12th month now, within 11 months, your
Yeah.
business is at a place where you can quite comfortably take the summer off. You probably will
Yes.
do something over summer like that.
Yeah.
That's likely still carry on, but you have the choice and the option. So I'm actually talking this week, and I don't like doing this on podcasts because podcasts live forever. So I'm going to put a date on this. This is the 12th of June, 2024. I'm doing something on Friday where we're going to talk with Sharon Corley about the summer holidays. And the theme is it was those 6 weeks we all loved as a teacher and
Mhm.
dread as a tutor. And what can we do about it? So, just to give us a warm up on this, what would be your advice? How have you managed the finances over the year so that you can, well, I'll get you to explain it because you did just explain it to me off
Yeah.
when we weren't recording. Explain how you manage it through the year so you're able to do that.
Yeah. So obviously, one of the things to consider is that when you get an income from your tuition business, it is liable to tax. It's liable
Mm.
to the natural deductions that you would expect. So saving becomes a natural thing that you have to do in your business anyway. And for me, when I left the classroom, I had a really clear idea of my current personal finances. So I had a figure, I had a number that I needed each month in order to keep the lights on, to keep everything going, and also provide a lifestyle of some description.
Yeah.
Now, I stuck with that figure and I've stayed with that figure for the whole of my tuition business. So even in some months where probably May was my busiest month, where I generated around sort of £9,000 in the month, I still only took £2,000 out of the business for myself. And what that meant is I've essentially created a savings pot which I can dip into in those quieter months. And
Mm.
so I'm not, when I first started out, cash flow can be a bit of a problem. So getting cash into the business and
Mm.
using it can be a bit of an issue. But I think if you are naturally saving towards those things anyway, and you're putting aside for those quieter periods, then it kind of evens out over the year.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm quite good with sort of a spreadsheet and sort of a budget. So instead of planning for the full year of tuition costs, I take my tuition amount that I'm likely to earn over the year and split it over the 10 months rather than over the 12. So it allows me the freedom to have the 2 months off if I choose to then not just tutor, because we can tutor all the time if we want to,
Yeah.
but really I want to work on the business. I want to focus on the branding, the marketing, and all the other stuff in the background that
Mhm.
the parents don't really see, but
Yeah.
that are really important for us to get right.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is a masterclass right now of how you should set up. And look, it won't always be that way. Like, as in, you you won't start off with this in mind. I mean, hopefully now you'll make a plan. For people listening, make a plan. Like,
Mm.
Matt, I don't want to use the word luck because I think you've taken that off the table with the hard work. I think that you can reduce the amount of luck that you need in business by actually like, planning, preparing, and then taking big action. You've done that and you've proved it, and you're at the point now where you can go, yeah, I can pay myself £2,000 a month. I'm going to save everything else. Those months where I can hit close to 10K, that can be squilled away because, by the way, yeah, you are going to have to pay tax. Like, for anybody listening and unsure about how the system works,
Mm.
of course you will, um, because you can become cash rich very fast when you're tutoring. It doesn't have to take ages to get to 9K a month or and beyond. It doesn't have to take that long. So I
No,
think really
yeah.
sensible advice, mate. Sorry, go on.
No, and I would say I think for a lot of tutors when they do experience that, because for a lot of us, that's the most amount of money we may have coming into our bank accounts since our teaching career started,
Yeah.
in for a lot of people. So I think being really sensible and having a plan about how you're going to approach it, not inflating your lifestyle too much is also a thing that just to be aware of as well. And that's just around sort of how you manage your finances anyway. So I think it's very tempting to suddenly go, oh, look at all this money coming in and look at what we can do now. But be aware of those things that you are liable for. Also, investing in your business is going to be a massive thing in the future. If you do want tutors or you want to make sure you're compliant, you're going
Mm,
to need to pay for people or pay for services that are going to help you to expand and grow as well. So, for example, I've in my business very early on, I pay for TutorCruncher, which is an administration tool for my tutoring. The amount of time that saved me is
mm,
massive,
mm,
but I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not found the plan, managed my finances to
mm.
the point where I could sustainably afford something like that.
Mm. Yeah, it's a really good point. There's a couple of points here. The first one was that planning and preparation around the money, and it's almost like keeping a hat on the like, oh my God, I got 9 grand going into my account. Like, what would we do? Like, if you won 9 grand on a scratch card, you'd probably blow it.
Yeah, yeah, you would.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
But
completely.
with a business mindset on and planning for the future, yeah, like you've got to make a decision around, right, how can I best invest this in the business, whether it's in you personally on building your own skills or on systems and processes like TutorCruncher that makes running the business way easier. So you don't have all the admin tasks and the ad and even uh, I suppose even the admin fees in a way, because you've got a choice, right? You can go and hire someone to do this stuff, which would be more expensive than TutorCruncher, or you spend your own time doing it and you're too valuable. Your time's way too valuable to be spending doing the admin. In the early stages, you will be, but once you get that money coming in, you can start making different choices. Do you think the TutorCruncher decision was quite pivotal in the growth and laying the foundations for the growth thereafter?
I think for me, I looked at as personally, I looked at my strengths. I looked at what I thought I I'm quite strong in, and one of those strengths that I've naturally got is a strength with technology.
Mm,
So I'm quite sort of fluent in a lot of the sort of technology stuff around tutoring as well, which has been quite helpful. And TutorCruncher for me seemed like a good fit for
mm,
my business and how I wanted it to sort of grow. And so learning about that system, and it is a bit of a steep learning curve with any system you try to implement. But if I think for me, when I started out, I wanted to make sure that that system was right to
mm.
grow from that system, and that has helped with a lot of the administration, and
Yeah.
it's helped me to really understand, payments and invoicing and
Mm.
all of the other stuff. Timetabling, especially for small groups, has been really helpful because I do
Yeah.
a mixture of online and in-person groups as well. And so managing all of that and juggling all of that, it's much easier to do in a system where you know that if a parent contacts you and says, my child can't make it on this day, you can go in, make the change there, and not worry about it.
Mm.
And it will invoice them appropriately as well. And I
Okay.
don't have to do a lot of the background stuff associated.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I'm sure there's lots of people, and this happens in the main group a lot. Like, how do we manage it? How do you sort out your groups? How do you invoice? How do you do whatever it may be? And it just feels like, I mean, there are. I know we're kind of bigging up TutorCruncher. There are other pieces of software
Yeah.
out there that you could go and research. And TutorCruncher always gets my vote of recommendation, as does TutorBird. Go and look at those
Yeah.
two main ones first, and then see which one fits. And whoever you speak to, if they're in TutorCruncher, they'll definitely recommend it. Those in TutorBird will also recommend TutorBird. That you just
Yeah.
have to go and find what's the right fit for you. And
Mhm.
again, there's even stuff that sits outside of the tuition industry that might be able to support you. But these two things are built with tuition in mind, which makes them kind of stand out.
Yeah.
Um, let's dig into like the groups, because you've moved towards groups in what some people would say in a very non-standard way. And I tend to teach this as in, someone says to me, "Oh, I haven't started yet. I want to go straight to groups. Is this okay?" Because other people say we have to start with one-to-one before we go to groups. I tend to think you can start with groups. I don't think you have to start with one-to-ones. Um, or you start with one-to-ones, but there's no reason why you can't do like a little bit of both or move towards groups really, really fast. What was around your decision making for sort of doing your one-to-ones and groups? How has that changed throughout your first year?
So in the first year, immediately, I think you go into that nervousness around your finances. You go into the nervousness around, you know, how am I going to afford X, Y, and Z? And so I started with small groups and I offered what I wanted to do was really see what I wanted to focus in on. And I think we make those decisions very early on, don't we? In sort of what we want our business to focus on. Whereas
Yeah.
my approach was, we'll try a bit of everything and
Mm,
see what I like to do because it's all new territory.
mm,
So I started with, I spoke to my local church who let me have their room. I use that on a Monday evening. I then do a lot of online sessions. I do a lot of online through Zoom as well. And then my one-to-ones, I would say they came in sort of sporadically throughout the year. And where I naturally had gaps in my evenings, I filled them with one-to-ones. And I think that is, for me, that was out of almost because I wanted to fill the time. And actually, what I ended up doing was, filling it up to the point where I was back to back for a number of hours each
mm,
evening. So I think my decisions around groups now, I've been over the year, I've really reflected on what I enjoy, what I want to do, what I want the business to focus on. And I made the decision a couple of months ago to go, I'm not going to do one-to-ones after school. And that was a bit of a transition and a bit of a decision I had to make. But really, that was about, what are people asking for? What are people contacting me in the business about? And the decision also came from where I've gained students in my local area from one-to-one tutors who have now joined my groups and are seeing more impact from the groups as well,
Mm.
which has been really insightful, because actually parents are coming to me now saying, I do want a small group. I want them to see other students. I want them to meet other people who, because it's about confidence. And a
Mm.
lot of the reviews and a lot of the feedback I've had has been around building confidence in young people to then go on to achieve, which has been quite interesting as a transition.
Yeah. Yeah, but and hats off, because like I know we talk about this a lot, but when you're providing the value, and we've already done this a little bit in even in our short conversation here, when you're providing the value at that level, people are going to want to know about it, and also the ones that you are supporting, they are sharing it. So when you have that parent who has just bought into the ethos and their child is making, big strides forward, of course they're going to share it, and then they're going to want a piece of that action as well. So um how did you when you first made that decision to go to groups, how did you kind of put the messaging out there? Was it something you was worried about? What do you think worked? Because a lot of people will go, yeah, I've tried with groups, but I can't seem to move the conversation beyond one to one. What worked for you, do you think?
I think for me, I started immediately from the July when I left and went full time in my business. I started immediately saying, I offer groups. It
Mm.
was the first thing that I spoke to parents about. When they phoned me up, when they spoke to me, I said, for most students, and it is about your messaging and being really clear about what you offer and what your offer actually is.
Yeah.
Because if in my area particularly, there was no one really offering small group tuition, there was no one really doing it. And so what I did was I was really clear in my offer being different, something a little bit outside of the norm, something a bit different. And I focused really on the messaging around the benefits of small group tuition.
Mm.
I didn't talk about, one-to-one is obviously appropriate for some learners, but the messaging I said was, for most learners, they will benefit in a small group with their peers.
Mm.
And so any conversation I had with a parent about one-to-one usually led to the conclusion of, they would be better suited in a small group. And
Mm.
so actually what you're doing is taking a parent who maybe contacts you about one-to-one tuition, and eventually they understand and agree with you by the end that small group is actually going to benefit their child the most, and
Mm.
it's not going to be as intensive. So it being really clear in why you're offering it and
Mm.
what the impact is going to be for the child, because that's what the
Yeah.
parent cares about. The parent wants to make sure that you're alleviating their pain point. Their
Mm.
child lacks confidence, their child is struggling with the subject. What is your offer that's going to alleviate that pain point for them, and how are you going to do it? So being really honest and listening to them about it
Mm.
is going to be really helpful to you, and getting that sort of business to go the way you want it to go.
Mm. I love all of this. This is a brilliant session, mate. You're knocking it out of the park. There's so many golden nuggets here. I absolutely love
Thank you.
it. What about social media? So a lot of the, and my model is it
Mm,
much mirrors this, in that I will, a lot of the time, this is a conversation with a parent on the phone, maybe sometimes an email conversation, rarely, sometimes voice notes or messages through Facebook. What about upfront knowledge, or I suppose we call it like educating the audience? Do you do any social media stuff to kind of, like we're saying about the messaging and saying about groups? Do you then answer any objections they might have upfront through your website or through social media?
yeah, so with my Facebook page is primarily the main way that I get people to have awareness of my businesses, through my
Mm.
Facebook page. I do go on, I do some Facebook lives. That's something that, if you're a tutor starting out, people want to see another person. They want to see you, the person behind the business. If it's a logo, whatever it is, they want to know who the person is that's behind it, what is the offer, what is the thing that you're selling. And also in terms of structuring it to give content out, it's being really clear about, I know my subject and I know my stuff, so the content is designed to help parents. That is the objective. The objective of the Facebook page is not just for selling services, but hopefully for a place where parents can go, oh well, Matt's put up something about the GCSE exam dates next year, or Matt's put up something, a revision resource, or a resource that's going to help my child to progress within their maths specifically. So it's, I think, tailoring your messaging towards not just selling, because I think we see a lot of people and we see a lot of businesses that just sell and sell and sell. Parents don't necessarily want to be sold to all the time. They want to make sure that you're providing something of value as well. So giving, going live and talking about some of the ways that students struggle in the GCSE maths exam, talking about the structure, talking about, giving something out of value brings more people in, and actually they start to trust and believe your messaging and what you offer. And it's not just about, I think with tutoring itself, it's not just about making money, it's about helping people. And that's why we all go into teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I know everyone will be like nodding along and yeah, of course it is. When you put that at the front of your business, it will happen. The business growth will happen because that's what it's about. Like parents want to know that you can help them and they're going to help their child to get better at whatever it is that you offer. And it doesn't really matter what level we're at. I've got a reception child with me who I tutor half an hour a week, where it's just about a little bit of phonics and a little bit of counting and a bit of early maths. And I was really worried at first because I don't really tutor that young. And I tried to put them off and go, look, they're really young. Like, I'm not sure whether we'd want to do this. But they were like, well, and they kind of sold it to me. And they actually ended up sending it to me, which is a very bizarre thing to happen anyway. I absolutely love it because the conversations before and after with the parents has been like the fun that we've had. We're not talking about moving that child from, say, I don't know, I'm going to go really phonics, right? So phase 2 phonics to phase 4 phonics. We're not talking about going through all the different sets of sounds. We're just talking about identifying how we can have fun with these sounds and how we can have fun with the numbers. And because they set that out at the beginning about how they wanted the tuition to go, it was really easy for me to then tailor that package to them. To them, and I would say, like, I don't do a lot of one-to-ones. I have a little bit of one-to-one time on a Saturday morning. The rest of my timetable, Monday to Friday, is all groups because I want to leverage the prime time. The prime times between 4 till 6:30 ish. I can go a little bit later some evenings. I want to make sure those times are completely safe. But if there are those occasions where someone comes to me and it's a genuine need for one-to-one, then I'm all ears. And if I can make it work, I will. And I know lots of people do something similar. I sort of hear something of yourself, like you said, I think before we started press record, you said like your other tutors, if they're available, you're trying to make it work for them, which I think is a really sensible way forward.
I think all this boils down to is listening to your client.
Yeah.
Listening to your client, understanding what the need is, and then providing the solution, whether that is small group or one-to-one. Your client will tell you what their pain point is. You just got to give them the space to tell you and to listen to them. And I think I made this mistake early on, when I first started doing it, because we're not natural salespeople. We're not, teachers. We're not used to it. And
No,
so one of the things, and we're not. So, and one of the things that I was quite early on, was talking to them about my business. I'd get them on the phone and I'd go, well, this is what we offer at this, and this is what we do. And actually what that led to was that people weren't converting because I was selling to them too much. Whereas when I stopped and said, oh, tell me about your son, tell me about what you're looking for, tell me, what's going on at school or whatever it is. And actually that's led to more of a relationship with that parent. Because I understand what they're asking for, I understand what the need is, and then I make the recommendation. And that's, I think, part of the selling stuff that we can get quite good at quite quickly, is use our skills as natural relationship builders
Mm.
to help you sell.
What one of the changes, Matt, in the Tutors Who Thrive course since you did it almost a year ago now,
Yeah.
is there's 2 days of sale, or say I always say 2 days. It's not 2 days, it's two sessions. It feels like 2 days. It's only really 2 hours. So we do 2 hours where we really focus on the sales. And the content's actually the same, but we've just fleshed it out because there's so much to cover in sales. Like there's just so much to cover. But one of the things which is completely the foundations is you ask a question and you shut up and listen. Just get out of the way of yourself because you are going to want to, you know, convince them. If you start explaining something you've lost, they should be selling it to you every time. They should be telling you exactly what they want. And it's so easy to make better decisions about whether you even want to work with that family. And that sounds mad because people are like, no, I just want to find clients. Yeah, you do, but you want to find clients that you can work with because they're the ones that are going to go away and build your business for you. They're your champions in the future. So you ask a question, you shut up and you listen and you take notes, but you really listen. And you
that's
build
it.
that bit. Yeah, that is, and
100%.
that's about 2 hours worth of sales training there in that one little snippet, by the way, because that if you just went away and used that strategy, it would automatically improve your sales.
And also it avoids you as a business owner experiencing pain as well.
Yeah.
Selling to the wrong person or knowing that someone is maybe not the client you want to work with, because
Yeah.
there's that, because as you progress in your tutoring business, as you go out of that desperation to sort of make a living and make it work, as you sort of get to the point where you're getting a good amount of money coming in and the business is thriving, you can be a bit more selective. And so you can listen to them, and actually you might not be the right tutor for them, and that's okay. And that's, I think, a really key thing to bear in mind as well, is we're not going to work for every single person that we meet. We're not. We might not be the best person for them at the time, and we can identify those things that maybe we want out of our clients and who we want to work with within our businesses as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Listen, Matt, we're sort of coming to the end.
Mm.
What's next for you? What's the next phase? I mean, look, year one must have just exceeded your target that you may set
Yeah.
yourself. You had a 2-year plan. You probably exceeded that within a year. Have you gone back to the drawing board and looked at the next strategy?
Um, I've I've given myself the summer to
Yeah.
really sort of go into detail about it, but now I'm in the stage where I'm thinking sort of bigger scale around brand.
Hmm.
So brand, what as an organization do I want to represent?
Mm.
What is the offer? And really, when I've thought about offers, recently I've read some books from Alex Hormozy,
Yeah.
the sort of £1 million leads, £1 million offers. And
Mm.
that's really made me think about, how do I make an offer to my parents that's really he calls it the grand slam offer, the thing that's gonna,
The
that people
brainer.
feel stupid for saying no
Mm.
to it. And I've really thought about how I'm going to package what I do, to make sure that parents are really happy with the service they receive from me, because that is part of it, isn't it? It's not, you know, I want to make sure that a parent who, when they use our services, they are happy, and they are happy to continue with that service,
Yeah.
because they will recommend more people to work with you, and it will be in the same circles as well. And that works really well. So the next advancement for me is, I've onboarded a um, technology diagnostic called Century Tech. That's one of the things that I worked with. I wanted to get introduced at the college I was working at, but now they work with tutors now, and I contacted them through LinkedIn, and I've actually signed up to have licenses for that product as well. So that's adding
Mm.
even more value to
Mm.
the groups that I offer. And that's another perk of offering, you can be really clear about what the additional is.
Mm.
So the strategy for next year is to really refine what my business is about and what I offer. This year was sort of an exploratory, I'm going to teach I'm going to teach overseas, I'm going to teach home educated, I'm going to teach after school and at the weekends, just to see what I enjoyed doing. And now I'm thinking, right, what's the brand? Who do I want to work with? What's the next steps? What are the things that my parents are saying to me that they want from my business? What are the things that I can do? And a great way to do that, and I did this back in March, do a Google survey, do a little survey to your parents. It's free to do, and just ask them these. Just put down your ideas and go, which are the things that you're going to see, which are the things that you want to see.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where the Century Tech idea came from. It came from the feedback from that, but also it was even things that you can build yourself. Like, one of the most popular suggestions was an ebook. They wanted an ebook on something specific around GCSE maths. That's summer project done. So you're thinking about it in little stages then, and that has been really helpful.
Some of this stuff, it reminds me of when I did something about 4 years ago. So my business started 6 years ago, but I only started taking it seriously 4 years ago. And I wrote down a wish list of what would I like to see in the business. And I achieved it all in a year. And I didn't realize I had, because I actually lost that list. I put it on a whiteboard that got screwed to the wall, but it was on the other side. And I found it about 18 months ago, just when I was moving offices. And I was like, oh my God, I achieved all of that, like pretty much within the first year. And what better way to build a wish list that is not made by you, but made by your clients and your potential clients, because you know it's exactly what they want. Like, there's just no better way of
100%.
doing it, is there?
It's just I think that's the key, isn't it? If you listen to your clients, if you if you're really if you're wanting to provide a good service, which I think everyone should,
Yeah.
everyone should want to provide a really good service that has big impact,
Mm.
then you're really, really interested in gaining feedback from your parents quite actively.
Mm.
And that can be through an email list, that can be through whatever platform you want to use. I use the TutorCruncher. I send them a monthly email. I send my parents a monthly email telling them about things that are coming up in the future, things to be aware of, when I'm releasing groups for September, for example. So they're always informed, and they've always got my contact details so they can contact me at any time. And it keeps them really well informed about what I do and what my business is about. And so they've got my details. They can ask me any questions. They can, suggest things all the time. And I always ask them for feedback, because that's how we grow as businesses. We continually adapt to whatever the new challenge is.
Matt, final question. Oh, it's got two bits to it. What's been the biggest challenge in your first year, and what's been the biggest positive?
Um, the biggest challenge, I would say, the biggest challenge is obviously right at the beginning. It's knowing what to do and what to focus your attention on.
Mm.
And so the big thing that I think to take away, if you're just starting out, there is massive value in networking with other people who are in a very similar situation to yourself. Or, and I've spoken quite a lot about this, going to a conference or going to an event with other tutors there. Um, I left around the time the first national tutoring conference happened. So I met you, and I met quite a lot of other tutors there, who were sort of in a very similar position to
Yeah.
myself, just starting out, not really sure where to go. And the value I got from that really drove a lot of the decisions that I then made at that time. And so instead of going there now as a tutor who's just starting out, I'm going there with business cards as a business owner, talking about, this is what I offer, this is strategy, this is what I want to focus on next. And so networking is absolutely massive. That's to combat the first challenge you might have about not knowing where to go. So
Okay.
being a member of your group, posting actively is great.
Mm.
The biggest positive from the business has been the freedom it's allowed me. The freedom of, one of the things I wanted to do was to take my partner away for her birthday this year, and I was able to do that because of the business. I was able to take her. We went to Lanzarote for 4 days, and we took her sister as well, and we were able to do that in term time because of my business, because of how much things have changed. And even now, my birthday this year, which is coming up, we're going away again. That's something I would not have been able to do had I stayed in the classroom, had I stayed in a sort of teaching environment. So it has, the biggest positive from all of this is the freedom it's given me, and how much I can, and there's a lot of autonomy in what I choose to do. I work on what I want to work on, and that I don't think you can beat that. I don't sit in Teams meetings all day or have hundreds of emails coming in. I can focus on what I want to focus on each and every day. And I don't think you can put a price on that, really.
I think it's often hard to capture that in, say, like if I'm trying to build a landing page for the course or the membership or whatever it may be, the autonomy and the freedom part, I find that hard to put into words. I really find that difficult because I can't. If you see me talk live, or if you actually like join the course, or hear me talk about tuition, I think you pick up on it, and there's an energy about it. But for somebody who doesn't know me yet, if they go, "Oh yeah, we'll have a look at this course and see," and then I say like maybe write like a paragraph or a bullet point about like freedom and choices and autonomy. I don't know, it doesn't feel real. There's something like maybe a disconnect between like reading on the screen and the reality of it. I can't, and I still can't really put it into words other than it's just life changing being able to say yes to things and no to things in equal measure because you don't have to do it or you just want to do it. I don't know, have a word for it yet. I bet there is a word that would be able to do it. I just don't know. I don't have the vocabulary, the broad enough vocabulary to do it. Matt, I've absolutely loved our conversation, and it's great to catch up with you. I look back on like your journey, and it blows my mind where you were 11 months ago to where you are today. Like the growth you've had has just been unbelievable, but well deserved. It's coming from the part that you put the hard work in, and you deserve it. So well done. And I know people listening to this would be hopefully taking notes, but leave with a few massive takeaways that they can go and implement in their own lives. So thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been great.